Hi, Adam.
Hi, Ross.
Episode 86 of the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast, and it is the new generation. We continue on post-Summerslam 1993 after our first little move into the new generation. We've done something a little bit different, something we've never done before, I don't think, and that is just try and take in everything.
Yeah.
Taken in the Monday Night Raws from the night the night post SummerSlam 1993. So we've taken in all of September and a little bit of October. So we've done 5 episodes of Raw. We'll do the next 5 episodes of Raw the next episode, and that leads us on to Survivor Series already. Crazy to think that that's a leap from SummerSlam to Survivor Series already, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that at times I sort of yearn for the days of less shows because it felt like you could do more in a way. You could have longer term storylines rather than feeling like you have to get through everything and then reset. But this has been a bit different,
and it leaves a lot to fill in as well. And we're obviously, I think Superstars must be in between here. I don't know how often Superstars was. Do you remember?
I think it was once a week.
Was it?
I think so, yeah.
I feel like Superstars and Raw probably quite hard to distinguish back then, but although I couldn't say that for certain without having watched Superstars, possibly a bit less wrestling on Superstars and a bit more, I don't know, sports, more entertainment than sports entertainment.
I've got like things in my mind about people sitting round boardroom tables and having conversations and like Mean Gene in front of lots of video screens chatting away and stuff like that kind of thing. I'm assuming that happened on Superstars. Like
our boy Joe Fowler in one of these episodes. Do you think he looked, we'll get on to it, I think he looked totally different from what he looked at SummerSlam.
Did he?
Do you remember, no?
I can't remember what he looked like at SummerSlam.
Okay, that's all right. You've blacked him out your mind. We'll go episode by episode, but just generally, how did you feel? These were, I guess they were an hour long at the time. They're about 40, in between 40 and 48 minute sort of little long episodes for us.
Yeah.
So we watched 5 episodes. How did you watch? You didn't watch them all at once?
No, I watched 2 and then 2, and then the final one I watched on Sunday yesterday. So I don't feel like I could sit and watch an episode of Raw now. What is it, like 3 hours?
3 hours, yeah.
Raw. And I thought, well, if I watch 2 in one go, that's like an hour and a half. I can cope with that. That's fine. It does drag in some stages because there's times when there's just not an awful lot happening, or not an awful lot that anyone really cares about happening. Yeah. And then there's some moments where, like, certainly one moment where there's a match on at the start, and I'm like, oh, that match is taking up a good, like, almost half of this show, and it was a decent match. So yeah, I didn't dislike it. It was more sort of feelings of like a weird nostalgia that I didn't live through. Mm-hmm. It's odd, but I enjoyed bits, and some bits, it felt like you were actually watching a 3-hour episode of Raw. What about you?
I liked it. I did not like the first episode, and I texted you telling you that. Mm-hmm. But as it went on, I liked it. There's something hard to put my finger on, right? But there's something about knowing that they've done 2 episodes in the same place. I guess they've done them back to back, or they're all the same taping or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's something about that feels a lot more joined up than wrestling now. Okay. I like the idea of that episode finishing, and then the next week the story picks up immediately from where it left off. Whereas every episode of Raw or SmackDown or anything is its own like gigantic event. 3 hours tonight, we've got 55 matches. Whereas like these episodes of Raw had basically one big match, one main thing that they focused on, plus a little bit of other stuff round about it. And I like the job matches too.
Yeah.
There's something about them, I think, more as a kid, that was like, yes, you get to see your favourite guy and just see him do like all his best moves.
Yeah.
Whereas that is not a thing anymore. Everything is...
The last time I remember this is random. I remember them doing kind of job matches on one of the shows when they were bringing through Braun Strowman because they were just having him destroy guys that you hadn't really even heard of. And when they were doing that, I was like, this can't have existed for years. The fact they're doing this, they did away with it quite quickly. But there is something about, especially I think when you're building a story and you maybe get to see in an episode one side of the story, which can be interesting rather than, these days you just know that the other guy's coming out with a microphone as soon as, something's been said or even a match has been done, the other side's going to be told there and then. I quite like it.
And it's slower, and I think you touched on that there with regards to the pay-per-views. There's an ongoing thread of Macho Man and Crush, and it's almost like a sort of mystery as to why Crush has got a bit of a chip on his shoulder about Savage, and we'll get into it, but there's a battle royal for the Intercontinental title to become number one contender for the Intercontinental title, and I 100% expected Crush to appear, and he didn't, and it just kept on, and I felt it's weird and really refreshing that this thread just kept going, and we're going to get, I think, next episode we're going to get Crush turning up, but I think you're just programmed now to expect run-ins and whatever. Anyway, let's go episode by episode. But I think there is actually quite a lot of. Maybe I've enjoyed it more than I think I did.
Nice.
The first episode has just like Vince's voice. Vince and Macho Man together are just no good. If Heenan wasn't there, I'd probably switched it off.
It is a lot because Vince has his voice and he's dominant. It's a dominant voice, and then you've got Savage coming in. In a way, it's similar. Like he also wants to, I think, be the loudest guy in the room, and you're like, one of those guys feels like it should have been enough.
Yeah, I agree. Macho Man's a bit like one of those. What do you call them? Like a control pad type thing that you push a button and it just says a phrase.
Yeah.
He just sometimes he'll just say something completely irrelevant. It's just like Vince is giving an elbow in the ribs and he's like, oh yeah.
In the modern day, I'd feel like that is a guy that is sitting there at work on his phone. He's just realised it's the moment he's supposed to speak. He hasn't taken in anything that's been said so far, so he just comes out with something.
Brilliant. That's good. Like that. So our first episode post Summerslam 1993 comes from the classic setting of the Manhattan Center in New York City, and that is what I think about that balcony, that browny red balcony, when I think of like an old Raw. We've got the neon WWF sign as they come out. So cool. And the big thing of this episode is the Steiners and the Quebecers. We've got a Quebec province rules match for the tag team titles. Do you remember the rules? Yeah,
so I was trying to write these down as they went because I thought, well, these are going to be important come the end of the match, no doubt. And I think I got it. I don't think he said it, or maybe he did say it wrong, because I thought he said at the start, pile drivers are legal.
Right.
But moves off the top are illegal. And I was like, right? Because I wrote that down, and then I thought, oh no, now they're talking about pile drivers being illegal. The title can be lost by a DQ or a count out. And throwing somebody over the top rope is also a disqualification.
Yeah, and pile drivers were illegal because Rick goes for 1 at 1 point. Scott, the voice of reason. Who'd have thought that? It's telling them not to. Now, Johnny Polo doesn't come out with the Quebecers.
Yep.
I don't think Quebecers were on SummerSlam, so we didn't see them then. And I believe Johnny Polo was Adam Bomb's manager at this point?
Yes. Yeah, so he is an active manager there, but there's great surprise when he comes out to join the Quebecers, kind of mid-match or relatively early on in the match.
Yeah. I don't remember Johnny Polo being with the Quebecers, do you? That's not what I associate him with.
Yeah, I didn't. And then when he came out, I thought, kind of don't really remember this. And then I didn't know, which is a good thing from watching it, what way it was going to go. So I thought, well, he's not going to swerve in a line with the Steiners because he's Johnny Polo. He's a proper heel manager. But
he must have been young, eh?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think of the match? It's very long.
I didn't mind it. There was some. Well, I'm always blown away by Scott Steiner's like athleticism and like the how mobile he is. It's like he's jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
And you know they're kind of telling us though the Quebecers are heels. I think which one is it? Jacques is the Mountie, isn't he? He was the guy that was the Mountie. He's a really good heel. He's an absolute dick. He's so annoying. But he's really good at it. But I also felt like it feels like they're building up the other guy, Pierre, as like, you know, he's the powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, they're trying to make him look, and I think we come back to that maybe the next week. Like he's going to be a big deal. And you know, when Johnny Polo comes out and he aligns, and the announcers are trying to tell the story of, you know, kind of what's he doing here, and then I think they quite quickly have a huddle with him because they're being nominated at that point, and then they start to use some heel tactics and get control, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is all fine. This is, you know, heel tag team and bad man manager doing their thing, and then I ended up like really shocked at the outcome, even though the deck's been stacked. But I was like, wait, what? It really confused me.
It's a weird one for the Steiners to have beat probably the more talented Heavenly Bodies that we saw on SummerSlam, and then drop the titles the next night. And I wondered, is this the Steiners done? Is this their way of getting them off TV and they'll go to WCW? But they don't go to WCW until just after Rumble 1994.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a bit of reprogramming of my brain, and obviously I touched on that about like run-ins, and I feel like everything that you see on TV matches, definitely WWE is like, it's all story related. The matches don't really mean anything, whereas this is meant as a sort of highlight of the episode and as a legitimate tag team title match, which, like I said, once I got my head around the fact that there wasn't going to be swerves and all that sort of thing, I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Yeah.
Like, as a pay-per-view you know, like the match quality is no the greatest match of all time, but as pay-per-view quality, I would have said.
Yeah, there were quite a few moments that I liked, because you mentioned earlier that Scott was having to be the voice of reason, because Rick, I think at one point he's going to pile drive somebody, and then at another point he's going to do a move off the top, and Scott keeps having to try and talk him down, and at a point I think he almost throws one of them over the top, and then I think maybe realises last minute and throws them through it. But then I think there's a moment where Scott seems like he just kind of loses it a wee bit. Is it the hockey stick? Is that involved with Johnny Polo? Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like it sets him off the fact that they're trying to cheat, and he just loses it, like you say. He attacks Jacques with the hockey stick, and the referee sees it, and that's enough to. Obviously, the DQ is part of the Quebec province rules, is enough to see the titles change hands.
So I think we're supposed to believe that Johnny Polo was kind of mastermind behind this whole thing, but sort of in the shadows before we actually came to this match. And
so he's the one that's
been behind the idea of having this stack in the deck match in that team's favour.
Nice. So a good interesting start. We get after that we get our first. Well, I've got here that we've got a ring girl walking around the ring with a card that says "Honk if you're raw." Which is an interesting one. We get our first jobber match of our tenure, Mr. Perfect, who they've got working like every episode of Raw.
Yeah, I
pretty much.
That.
I think
I was thinking Raw is perfect. Yeah,
beautiful, total workhorse. No wonder his back broken half. And he squashes a man called Tony DeVito.
Tony DeVito. Did you recognise Tony DeVito?
I didn't.
Nah,
no.
Me neither.
I was doing my Googling for each jobber to see who they were, but Tony DeVito was not somebody that came up.
The only thing I really noticed in this, DeVito seemed to be a bit of a lively character. He was sort of, I think, trying to rile up Perfect and things like that, and then there's definitely a botched move at one point, and Perfect's laughing about it in the ring.
Amazing.
And then he announces that we're going to see a perfect plex, and then he executes it.
I like that. Yeah. Talking of lively characters, during this match, our boy Vlad, the superfan, is in the front row, and he has got everybody going with a "We Want Sean" chant.
Nice.
It was a pretty rowdy crowd.
Yeah.
Definitely enjoyed that. So we go from there to, we can maybe just take all the adverts, or what is it that, what the hell's his name again? The English guy. What's his name? Consideration is paid for by the following.
Oh, yes.
What the hell's his name?
Alfred Hayes.
Yes.
Is it Alfred Hayes?
Yes.
Yeah. Lord Alfred Hayes.
Lord Alfred Hayes, yeah. So some of the adverts that we get on these episodes are amazing. Proper sexy as fuck ICOPRO advert with Lex Luger. We got a Slim Jim one with Macho Man.
Yeah.
Snap into it. We get the Game Boy King of the Ring game.
Yeah.
Which is just easily one of my favourite Game Boy games. What else did we get? We got a different ICOPRO one with Razor Ramon, didn't we?
Yes. And there's a don't accept cheap alternatives or something like that, where there's this guy who's like going and trying to chat this woman sitting on a bench, and I think he definitely goes as Razor Ramon and as Savage, and then I think Savage walks off, the real Savage walks off with her in the end.
Classic. And then we get the Oscar-worthy advert of the sort of balding middle-aged guy in bed with this like supermodel looking woman, and she's like, "Come on, baby." He's like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to do anything." She's like, "But it's Friday night." "It's Friday night." And then you get Vince going, Friday night. It must be Monday night.
Yeah.
Monday Night Raw, unbelievable. And the guy's like sitting in front of the TV, munching away at crisps. That is amazing.
Brilliant.
They should bring that back. I did enjoy it, and ICOPRO's like everywhere, isn't it? Big banner ICOPRO and all that.
Oh yeah.
What was that like? That was like creatine type stuff, right?
Yeah, but I think it was Vince's, wasn't it? It was his own.
Yeah. Okay, where do we go from there? Is this the Ludwig? Oh, they showed us the footage that I missed from the celebration after.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really impressive promo from Ludwig Borga.
He did okay, yeah.
Aye, you believe him that he does actually hate America, don't you?
I think he's probably a better talker than a lot that show up over the weeks.
Aye. After that, we get another jobber match, Razor Ramon, and he's taking on the Executioner. Do you know who the Executioner is?
I don't. I felt like he maybe, this sounds stupid because he's wearing a mask, but I felt like he maybe looked a bit familiar, but I just didn't know.
It's Terry Gordy.
Ah, okay.
I thought he looked a bit small to be Terry Gordy, but then Razor Ramon's a big guy, so.
True, yeah.
And like I said, go back to what we're saying, there is something really cool, and Razor Ramon, Mr. Perfect, these are the sort of people I can remember being on Raw and just like going through their repertoire of moves. Razor Ramon's really good for that because he's got like quite a good move set.
Yeah, and like I think he definitely appears on probably maybe 4 of
most
the 5
episodes.
Yeah, and I talked a few weeks ago about him being like my guy from this era, and I have changed nothing of my opinion with what I've seen. And he's, like you say, his movesets, and also like his finisher move, the Razor's Edge, it's just incredibly cool looking.
Aye.
Like he looks like a guy that would be executing something like that, and there's something just brilliant looking about the move. Love it.
See, when he's coming out, he comes through the curtain, and he's not like playing to the crowd. He is just Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
There's something about that you didn't really see anymore. I feel like a lot of time don't know if I'm going to explain this properly, but I think a lot of the time now, people are playing wrestlers.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of someone who probably isn't like a Roman Reigns is Roman Reigns, and the way that he acts and all that, doesn't feel like caricature. Razor Ramon is that character. Something like Seth Rollins, I feel like, is just like playing a wrestler that he used to like wrestling and watch wrestling, and now that's what he's doing. Whereas Razor Ramon is just like, that is. I'm not explaining this properly, but it's like, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah. So he's not performing as Razor Ramon. He is Razor Ramon.
Aye.
He's just living in that world where he is Razor Ramon. So the interesting thing is, like, because he was a heel when he first came in, and I really don't think he's changed all that much about what he's done. There's maybe a bit less of, I can imagine him sort of, threatening side hand to the crowd as he's walking out as a heel or something like that, and he's not doing that. But again, he's not reacting to their appreciation so much. He's just walking out like, this is just me,
Aye, that's what I liked. There's no like hand slapping of the fans. There's no like, even he didn't look at them. No. He's like in his own wee world. So yes, that was the match against Terry Gordy, and obviously gets the win. Where we go next? We get the Mounties, not the Mounties, the Quebecers and Johnny Polo coming back out at the end, and they're celebrating and all that. And that was something that I quite liked about these episodes as well, that they've obviously got quite a small roster of wrestlers, and they sort of bookend the episodes with what's happened at the start, and then do a little bit of a summary, or like the storyline continues at the end. So we get, what do we get? Quebecers coming out, and they oddly offer. Is Vince in the ring with them?
Yeah, Vince is in the ring, and I think he's initially, he's just speaking to Johnny Polo, and then the Quebecers kind of start getting involved because Vince is talking about, well, surely the Steiners deserve a rematch, and it ends up kind of going to a situation where there's a bit of bargaining and negotiation going on, and then Johnny Polo comes back to the mic and says that if a Steiner can win a singles match against a Quebecer, then they can have the tag rematch. And it sounds like, the singles match is going to take place the following week. But it felt like Johnny Polo wanted no part of a rematch, but the Quebecers were a little bit cocky and like, we can beat them again type thing. And Johnny Polo's sort of that voice of reason in the background, be like, no, you can't.
So that's what they do. They agree. I think they initially say it's Jacques, and then they go, "Oh no, Pierre." Yeah. So that's the terms, and we'll get to that at the next episode. We finish off with a match between Doink the Clown and Rich Myers. Didn't get a future personality for Rich Myers. During this match, Vince takes a phone call from Crush, which sort of, I really like this. It doesn't need to. It's not over the top. It doesn't need to be on the telly. It's just the phone call whilst the match is going on. Yeah. It's a straightforward match, so you can do both those things at once. And they're speaking away to him. He's talking about being in great shape and all that. Macho Man asks him a question, and the line just goes dead. And they're like, "Oh, technical difficulties and all that."
Really liked it because it was subtle enough that you'd be like, "Oh, it just cut off," or something like that, and that's just bad timing or whatever. And then they do build this as the weeks go. Yeah, well, this was well done.
And I think I was watching it, and I think I probably just sort of laughed, like, "Oh, look at the state of this!" Like it just went off, sort of thing, which is great. So we finish off with Doink getting the win. Do you remember how he won his match? No. What was Doink's finisher? Like
Doink wins easily. Is all I've got.
Nice. And he goes to throw. He's got his buckets, and does he start off? Does he throw the confetti on Vince or something?
Yeah. So he's sort of threatening the bucket throw onto Savage and Vince, and then I think he throws it, but it's confetti, and then Heenan, who has been encouraging Doink to do that throw onto his broadcast partners. Heenan's going to be the one that gets the water bucket. So I suppose this is Doink turning babyface, because he was obviously representing Lawler at the SummerSlam event.
And Heenan's absolutely first class with this.
Yeah, brilliant. He's furious.
So if we jump straight into the next episode, because it's almost a continuation, it's clearly the same setting. I think, I said earlier, I think it's probably the same. It definitely is the same recording, because our boy Vlad's still in the crowd shouting, "We want Sean." So we go straight into Scott Steiner versus Pierre, and if Scott wins, the Steiners get their rematch, or so we think. Yeah. Again, this went. I would say this went as long as the tag match. It went really long, and it almost felt like an exhibition for Big Pierre.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
I enjoyed it, and I think, I think things end up. It starts out just the two of them, because I was kind of thinking, where's the rest of the tag team partners and that at the side? Gets a bit chaotic. We get Johnny Polo coming back, and Jacques, and Rick Steiner ends up coming out as well to even things up. But I don't have an awful lot of notes for it. I've got how it finished, but I don't have an awful lot of notes apart from that.
Yeah, it was pretty good back and forth, because they had, like we talked about before, they're obviously wanting to make Pierre come across as a bit of a monster here, and Scott is still in a way here where he's not bad at selling. He can move about and bounce around and things like that for a guy, but at the same time, I think making him look like a very technically accomplished performer. I thought it was a pretty good match. It actually shone both in a pretty good light, and you could watch this and believe that both of them would end up being, significant singles competitors at some point in the future.
Would you assume that Pierre would still be wrestling as a sort of idiot Frankenstein Daredevil type character?
Yeah, I remember hearing about PCO. PCO? And then looking him up and being like, is that the guy? And then finding out it was the guy. He's had quite a lengthy career for himself.
Yeah, still going strong. So Scott ends up getting the win with his patented Frankensteiner.
Yeah.
Always looks horrendously scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, Scott gets the win. So we are to assume that the Steiners will be getting a rematch. Yeah, potentially getting their belts back.
I mean, I would never suspect a fine manager like Johnny Polo to be lying to us. So, yeah.
I wonder if he wrestled before. He must have done. He must be a trained wrestler. That's quite a Vince characteristic type thing, isn't it?
I think he'd tried. I think he'd hoped when he was given this gig that it would end up being him in the ring as a performer, but apparently Vince just didn't really see it in him. Which, probably based on the Johnny Polo character, is fair enough. But that wasn't all he had.
No. It's amazing to think that he went from that to Raven, and then obviously ECW, WCW, and then eventually made it all the way back. When would that have been? It'd been like 2001.
Yeah, early 2000s.
Invasion. Yeah. Was it before Invasion? After ECW went?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, next match was our boy, Bam Bam Bigelow. Beautiful to see him. He's got Luna Vachon with him. Vince refers to her as the lunatic.
Yeah.
Which was a bit weird. And he is taking on a man who loves a drop kick. And he had no other moves in his repertoire. Laverne McGill. I loved Bam Bam Bigelow. And I know we've spoke about him before, but he was great.
Yeah. The size, but the mobility, the agility, crazy. A lot of like I think of him, and I think of Bossman was fairly agile, certainly for a period of his career. And I think for a period of time, your super heavyweights, some of them could move, but I don't ever remember seeing one that quite looked like Bam Bam in the way, like the size and the way he moved about. Like what was his name? I've forgotten his name. Remember 3 Minute Warning?
Yep. Well, like Rosie and Jamal.
Yeah. Because they were pretty agile and mobile for big guys as well. But yeah, certainly in this day and age, you didn't really see them like that, like Bam Bam was.
Nah, like a big guy would be like, you try and clothesline them and they like swing their arms round and round like they're almost off their feet sort of thing. Like he was diving off. There you go. Yeah. He was like diving off top rope doing headbutts and all sorts of crazy stuff. And when you're a kid, like this man's got flames tattooed on his head.
Oh yeah, that's just cool.
Flames absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Ferocious. I think he looked sort of vicious. And where was he from again? Where's Asbury Park? Is that like is it Philadelphia?
I can't remember. I remember because they made a big thing out of it in ECW, didn't they?
Are you looking it up?
Yeah.
This and whilst you're looking up, like Bam Bam is another one that is cool to see him just doing like his full repertoire, because he could pull out like crazy moves as well. He just absolutely squashes this Laverne McGill guy.
New Jersey,
New Jersey, isn't it?
Yeah, they're again using a fair bit of this to get Crush on the phone here.
Aloha. Macho Man's talking absolute shite. No wonder he's annoyed at him. I don't remember what he's saying to him, but Macho Man is seems to be speaking for ages. Heenan is straight in there winding things up, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's brilliant at that. Like he's latched onto what's going on, and he's kind of like needling Savage about it and trying to make sure that it's a big deal, even if there's a risk it's not. But yeah, does it not come out with Crush saying something like he won't speak to Savage as long as he lives, and then he hangs up or something like that?
Yeah. He, like you say, Heenan's straight on top of it.
And Savage is oblivious, or seems oblivious to what's going wrong and what's going on here.
Yeah. He's like totally positive. Oh, nothing, we can't work out what we done to each other and all that sort of stuff.
So I found quite funny here in the match, because the match is going on while this conversation's all happening, is Luna cheats here to help Bam Bam win, even though he's absolutely destroying the boy. One of the things that I don't think it's necessary for Bam Bam to need any help against Laverne, but I did like as I'm watching these matches, I kept thinking to myself, well, it's pretty obvious exactly what's going to happen here, but then I had it in the back of my mind. 1, 2, 3 Kid, they had him beat Razor Ramon, and he was an absolute jobber. That's the role he was in. So I imagine that did make the audience think a little bit more. Well, I've kind of got to pay attention here, because who knows what they might do.
Nice. That's like I think that's where George R.R. Martin took all the sort of you never know who's going to die from Game of Thrones. He watched that episode of Raw and
must have been
1, 2, 3 Kid got the win, and we do get one of those later on. I'm sure we'll talk about it. Heenan at this point is really selling how badly unwell he is from getting the cold water thrown on him. He says he's got 113-degree temperature, he's snotting and sneezing and everything. Heenan needed to have his own TV show or something.
Yeah, I think I heard they actually tried to do it. They tried to give him like a late night show, and it was on the same network as what I think it was pre-Raw. All this, it was like the same network as they had either Superstars or Primetime or something like that on, and it was to be like an almost satire of a late night,
right?
Like Letterman and things like that. And apparently, they made a few episodes of it, and everyone thought it was hilarious. But I think that maybe only one aired because not enough people watched it, and it got pulled. But apparently, content-wise, it was hilarious.
Amazing. It feels like it's in one way it's a great thing that only wrestling fans really know of how awesome he was. But it feels like everybody deserves to have seen some of his wit. We get a very special interview with Bret the Hitman Hart in the ring with Vince. Do you notice Vince's facial expressions when he's doing these interviews?
No.
He's like constantly just changing his, I don't know, he's just acting very weird. I don't know if he thinks he needs to constantly be doing something. What was Bret talking about here?
Lawler, the disrespect of his family from Lawler. He's talking about how he didn't care about losing the match. He just needed to, get some revenge on Lawler. Something that I don't know that I picked up on it at the time, but obviously Lawler won that SummerSlam match, and they talk about this here. So he is the official king of the WWF. And then they showed a little, I think it was a still of Lawler on a stretcher being carried out, and he's raising his
finger in there. That's amazing,
Brilliant.
eh? Yeah. That's him to a T sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I like how, again, Bret, like, you just believe what he's saying. Similar to what we're saying about Razor Ramon. He says he wishes... I think Vince asks him, do you regret your actions or something like that? He says, the only regret I have is that I didn't hold onto the sharpshooter longer. And he fucking looks like he means it. Like, you believe that. And Vince was like smiling and Vince says that somewhere, somehow down the line, Jerry Lawler will have to face Bret Hart in the ring. Unfortunately, the US legal system may have something to say about that.
Yeah.
And that's us. I've got that at this point. Bobby Heenan's tearing into Joe Fowler, but I don't know what the context of that is. Do you?
I don't have that. I've just got a straight going into Mr. Perfect against Mike Bell.
Yep. Mike Bell wrestled in ECW, but I don't think he was ever to the point of anything. We want Sean Chant from the Smart Marks in the crowd again. Go on.
Yeah.
Do you think they know that he's obviously they won't know he's suspended, but they'll know that he's not there for a reason, sort of thing?
I would assume so. Yeah. I wonder, would dirt sheets have been a thing? They would have been. Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah. So bound to be some that are reading all what's going on behind the scenes.
This isn't the same thing, is it? This isn't the Marine stuff. That's later in the future,
No,
isn't it?
This is failed drug test, sent home, and then legitimately refusing to send them back the IC belt. So
Why?
he disagreed with having been suspended, so he refused to send it back, saying nobody's beat him for the title, and then somebody got the idea for that's a storyline right there.
Brilliant. The things he's got away with over the course of his career. I was just watching, this is a way off to the side, but I was just watching something on, Inside the Ropes, how they do these on-stage nights with various different wrestlers. There was one with Cody Rhodes, and he was talking about basically messing up, taking a super kick from Shawn Michaels around about 2009. Yeah. And he said he got back into Gorilla and he was ready to apologise, and Michaels picked him up under the underarms and lifted him and said, "You've got one thing to do. Don't you ever do that again," sort of thing. And he was like, "Wow, Shawn Michaels, how was he able to lift me up," sort of thing. And that was he's like, and that's reformed Shawn Michaels. Funny. Yeah. Perfect Plex, another one-sided event. Mike Bell was never going to beat Monday Night Perfect. Ludwig Borga's back. Is this him in the ring cutting a promo? Or is this him just walking about the shithole?
I think it's him walking around a shithole area in America, saying what he thinks of it.
Yeah. I'll let you take the next thing that happened with Bobby Heenan.
So, but Bobby Heenan helps with a proposal in the crowd. A guy wants to propose to his other half and does so, or his future other half. And I think that's all that needs said about that.
Is that it? Right, okay. The guy seems to be having a bit of bother with English, and his partner is Asian? Yeah. Shall we say what Bobby Heenan said, or is it?
That's your call.
Bobby Heenan makes a quip. I think we'll just leave it at that. But needless to say, it's 1993.
It's very of its time.
Indeed. Indeed. The next match is Erwin R. Shyster, later referred to as Mr. Rotunda by Vince, is IRS, and he's taken on a man named PJ Walker. And do you know who PJ Walker is? You must do.
Well, I actually didn't, but I think you messaged me, didn't you? Yeah. I didn't see it at all at first.
Really?
Like, yeah. Did you know as soon as you saw him?
Aye.
Okay.
Because I think his name was his name, is his real name not PJ Palaco? I think that's what made me think, that's who that is, and then you could see his face. So it's just incredible. I think I'm going to look that up. You can talk about the match and all.
Okay, so IRS. It feels like we're building towards someone with IRS and Razor. IRS is pretty early on in charge of the match, but Razor's walking down and he's distracting Irwin. Well, he had dominated the match early on. With the help of the distraction, PJ Walker rolls up IRS and gets the huge upset win. IRS is hot. He is furious. Tim White has to hold him back.
Tim White.
He wants to go after Razor. Razor's finding it all particularly hilarious, as he would.
If anyone could be described as oozing machismo at this point, it's definitely Razor Ramon.
I thought you were going to say Tim White, but okay,
well,
we'll go with Razor. Yeah,
it is. His real name is PJ Palaco.
Okay.
So yeah, what a big win! The next 1, 2, 3 kid, PJ Walker.
Well, I mean, he's going to have a career.
There you go.
Did he not end up tagging with Sean Waltman at some point as well? Two guys that got big upset wins on Raw.
Do they really?
Way down the line, I think he ends up tagging with them.
Are you talking about X Factor? No.
Was that X Factor?
Like later on with Albert?
Yeah.
And Uncle Cracker was their theme music.
Yes, that's
right. Later on in these episodes, it's Barry Horowitz that's tagging with them. 1, 2, 3 kids.
Yeah.
Just sort of randomly out of nowhere, Johnny Polo says the Steiners won't be getting a title match. So fuck your agreement that we had, but they'll give it to someone who deserves it. Yeah,
I was a bit thrown by this. I mean,
you can't do that.
Where are we without, some sort of rule structure in place? He says the match hasn't gone the way he wanted, so he's just like, nah, it's not happening now.
I cannot imagine the Steiners taking that well.
No.
From some of the stuff that we've heard about the Steiners driving in fields and crazy stuff, nah. I can't imagine them taking that very well. So that for me, that was a good episode. I enjoyed it. Maybe it was just because things just get a little bit better when Bret Hart's on the TV.
That's fair.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Next episode, 27th of September, New Haven, Connecticut. I take it Raw's round about this time were all like New York and Connecticut area.
Yeah, I think they kind of stayed in what was traditionally the territory.
Right. It's interesting, eh? It's interesting to see it that way because you obviously hear about New York being WWF territory, but I could never really work out when that period was. I take it we're still within that period.
I think they've obviously they have expanded, but I think purely for Raw purposes, I think they were keeping that around that area. I imagine because you look at how sort of few established talents are actually on Raw, they'll have house shows going on all over the country, I would expect.
I didn't think about that. And there is something pretty cool about that. Like, when you see episodes of ECW, the old ECW TV show and the pay-per-views, and it's like same faces in the crowd and all that. Mm-hmm. There's something quite cool about that.
Yeah.
Cold open with our boy Jack Tunney. He is suspending Shawn Michaels and stripping him of his Intercontinental title. He's a hard man, that Jack Tunney.
Vlad will have been absolutely devastated.
Oh, maybe that's why they had to move to Connecticut, because he was worried about him causing a riot. He announces a battle royal, and a 20-man battle royal, and the last two men will fight for the vacant title in a future episode.
Yeah,
which is exciting. I was excited to see who they're all going to put in a 20-man battle royal based on the very sort of small part of the roster that we saw so far.
Mhm.
So we kick off the show after that with a one-on-one match, the undefeated Tatanka taking on the model Rick Martel.
Yeah. So it's again starting off with established talents rather than the jobber matches. I think the first match on every card and every show has been the most sort of established match on that show.
Which is a pretty smart idea, I suppose, if you try to grab people rather than in the future it would be previewing or setting up what was going to become the main event.
Yeah. So I think by the sounds of it, like you say, Tatanka's undefeated. It sounds like Rick Martel's been away a while and has now come back to the company. He sounds like in real life he's like the best well-adjusted former wrestler ever. He's like not bitter about anything, but he's just totally moved on in life. Like he gets invited to things, he gets invited to, reunion shows and stuff like that, and he's like, I'm alright.
Really?
Just living my life.
You talk about now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think he's in house sales or something like that as his business, and he's totally adjusted to being a non-wrestler.
I bet he's still scooshing people with obsession as they walk through the door.
Probably. You never move past that. I mean, if he's showing an open house and he's got obsession in his hand, that's how you sell it.
It's over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Close the sale. He remember him on WCW, and he just seemed to have the biggest arse you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like that here though, and I'm sure that was around about 90.
Yeah.
Maybe it's further on. Maybe it was further on actually.
There's definitely a few fans here chanting "Let's go, Rick."
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it before this that he was like really over the top with the little like sort of beret and all that? Like when he wrestled Michaels at 92 Summerslam, he had Sherry Martel with him, did he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So he's probably from there left not long after that, and then this is him back. I assume he did a stint elsewhere. But yeah, there's definitely just because Tatanka generally gets quite good reactions, but there is definitely a group of fans that are chanting "Let's go, Rick."
Class, Martel marks, go mental. Heenan at some point during this match is back on his points system. He says that Martel is ahead on points. Vince is always pretty good at reacting to some of the stuff that Heenan says. Eventually this one ends up going to a double count. Now Tim White he's raging at this.
Oh yeah,
he's had enough. And he just ends up counting them out.
Yeah.
Does that mean the streak is over? I don't think they really.
So he's still undefeated.
Fair.
Yeah. Were you a Tatanka fan as a kid?
As a kid, I think so. Again, I loved the Tatanka figure.
Yeah, I liked Tatanka as a kid. I do not see it now. I do not know what the appeal was as I watch it now.
Probably the character. Certainly know his moveset, that's for sure. Oh, he did a good not a back body drop, a Samoan drop, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. Probably the first time I saw a Samoan drop was probably Tatanka.
The tomahawk chops off the top rope are no for me. His knees must just be screaming every time he gets out of a chair these days.
Yeah.
We go to a completely pointless thing with our boy Joe Fowler. He explains everything that Jack Tunney's already explained about what happens with a battle royal, and I think he names every single person that's going to be in it.
It does. I was thinking he was just going to name some like headline acts that were going to be in, but he just keeps going. But maybe that was important for, like I said, in this one where Crush is Crush back here, and he is not happy that he is not in this.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep. I was excited at who on earth MVP was.
No.
I was like, oh man, that's a character for the Warriors. What is he doing? I take it you know who that is, aye?
Who was it?
MVP was the like early iteration of the Brooklyn Brawler.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah, I wasn't into this gimmick. Like, when I saw basically a face made up to be a baseball, I was like, nah.
And they announced Bastion Booger. I was just like, yes, this is peak 1993. We get Ludwig Borga making his, what appears to be his in-ring debut. I'm not sure if it was, but it seems like it was. And he kills a man named Phil Apollo.
There's one thing that annoyed me about this. Now, it was maybe very much his WCW move, but Borga wins this with a torture rack.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody is selling it as, this is a move that Lex Luger has used a lot in the past or anything like that. They're just kind of, I suppose I don't really remember him using it in WWE.
I don't think he did. It was the
That's
whole
unfortunate.
forearm smash.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let them off.
Because one of the big things, certainly as Luger as a face in WCW, is when he used to do he would gesticulate, he was going to do the torture rack and the fans would go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Which is quite weird. I wonder why. Well, he couldn't have used that in Yokozuna, couldn't he?
Well, no.
Yeah. Total squash. Interested to see where they go with Borga. I'm sure I could look up to see. I think you'd indicated it doesn't go very far.
Yeah, I think there'll maybe be one match with Luger coming up, and then that kind of might be it, I think.
Right. Shame. Well, no shame actually, because you said he sounded like an absolute lunatic and a horrendous person, so maybe not so much of a shame.
So from one horrendous person to another.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, they make a big deal of Jimmy Superfly Snuka returning to Monday Night Raw. I am sorry, right? This is 1993. No, I'm not sorry actually, because I think he's a murderer. 1993, right? I'm sure that Snuka is in the 2008 Rumble. Am I wrong? What's the Royal Rumble where Cena returns as number 30? It's in Madison Square Garden. Is that 2008?
I'll look it up.
Snuka and Piper are in the same match, and I remember the likes of Punk and Cody Rhodes, loads of them. They're all sort of stood around watching as Piper and Snuka face off.
He was number 18 entrant in the 2008 Royal Rumble.
I don't think he looks awful at this point in time in 1993. How on earth they managed 15 years later to get into a Rumble, I've no idea.
Oh. Yeah, because it feels like by this point he's past what would have been his prime, because even in the WrestleMania days, it's like sort of the early WrestleManias, it's indicated he is a veteran. He's been around a very long time just when that's starting off. So, yeah. Moved 2008, that's crazy. Piper
does not look good in that 2008 Rumble. You can barely see his tights for his belly. I think, well, obviously getting Snuka on this show seemed like it was like a sort of marquee thing that they were doing, but the more important stuff happens via the commentary with Crush on the phone. It's Heenan that calls him the little shit stirrer.
Brilliant.
And he's immediately annoyed that he's not been invited. I'm in the best shape of my career, brother. Heenan completely stirring the pot with Savage, going, you know who is in it though? Macho Man Randy Savage, isn't it?
The way he did that was brilliant. We've all met that guy that just loves stirring the pot.
Absolutely.
And this is pure Heenan.
Crush hangs up. As soon as Savage starts speaking, he hangs up. You can hear it. It's amazing.
Brilliant.
Whoever came up with this, genius. Snuka wins, hits a splash. So that is it. This is when I think we've got IRS backstage and Vince is consistently calling him Mr. Rotundo.
Yeah.
He's calling him.
I've got in my notes, I have no idea why he's calling him that. I mean, he's been established here as the IRS character. It seemed really weird. I started to get really annoyed with IRS's promos as well. Like, not everything relates to tax. Like,
imagine just trying to have a normal conversation with him. What would you like for dinner, Erwin? Yeah, he's not very happy. I assume he is calling out Razor Ramon.
Yeah. And he's going to say he will be in the Rumble and he will win it, the Battle Royal, he will win it and then go on and win the IC title.
Okay. Next up we've got, I keep writing the Mounties, the Quebecers. They're taking on apparently people that Johnny Polo feels is more worthy for a title shot, the 1-2-3 Kid and Barry Horowitz.
I mean, they really sell this because I think it comes out that, Barry Horowitz has a regular partner who isn't available tonight. He's out sick. So not only have they chosen a team that obviously shouldn't be in the picture, but the team aren't even established.
Yep.
It's just 1, 2, 3 kid filling in with Barry Horowitz.
Who was Barry Horowitz just like a sort of lifetime job
Yeah,
guy?
I think so. It's one of those names I feel like you've heard a lot, but yeah, never really known much about him.
It's not much at a match, really. And it's an odd position for 1, 2, 3 kid to be in, considering he was just on pay-per-view and got beat by IRS.
Yeah.
And you expect the Steiners to make an appearance or something like that as well, but no sign of them. Are you looking up Barry Horowitz? No?
I was really confused by his ring names that he's gone by in his career. Barry Hart, Barry Horowitz, Bret Hart.
What?
He just went by the name Bret Hart for a bit. Jack Hart and the Red Knight. Now, I think that may come into play as we get to Survivor Series.
You just try to play. There's enough hearts. We don't need a fake one. Who was it? What was it? Oh, there's a fake Von Erich, wasn't there? I was trying to think where else. What other family member was it?
Yeah.
Enough of them as well, except for they were a bit dwindling.
Well,
apologies to. Yeah. Anyway, I think Pierre gets the win here. Jacques ends up getting knocked out by 1, 2, 3 kid's kick at one point, and Pierre just fucking destroys both of them because he's a beast.
Yeah. Wins the match 2-on-1. Again, they do make him look like an absolute beast.
That's quite a babyface move for him to have his...
It is. Yeah, I did find that odd because they're a heel team and he's overcoming the odds. It seemed a wee bit odd, but yeah, fair enough. I think on a show like this, if you want to show what you're building with the guy,
definitely.
There's something mentioned while they're going through this about Macho Man's contract. I think it's Vince mentions it, his contract as an announcer. And I think the indication is he's not allowed to get physical because he has a contract as an announcer. But obviously he's going to be taking part in that Battle Royal, so I assume he's allowed to do that. I think this maybe comes back into play a couple of times over the time he's at the announce desk in Raw where he's not supposed to be getting physical, but it does happen.
I did think it was weird that they said his name as being in the Battle Royal, because from all I can remember at that point was that round about WrestleMania 9, Vince had decided he was over the hill, and the commentator was the way he was going to go forward. But of course, I did remember WrestleMania 10, he fights Crush.
Yeah.
In a... what do you call it?
It's the Falls Count Anywhere,
yes,
is that it?
That's what it was, yeah. At the end, we get Razor Ramon out to talk about the Battle Royal. I love that he calls Vince Mac Mine.
Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely love that. I've got in my notes here that Vince keeps shaking his head like he's D'Lo Brown. I don't know why he's doing that.
That's kind of an odd guy.
That's where Steve Austin got his inspiration, clearly. But that was that episode. Yeah. So we kind of leave the episode previewing the next episode. It's almost like it's a format of a TV show.
Yeah. They'll never catch on.
And not a 3-hour slugfest to try and get through. So the fourth episode, second part of these episodes that are in New Haven, Connecticut, it kicks off with an absolute bang because we're straight into this Battle Royal, aren't we? I didn't do like a here's who was in the match and here's how they all got eliminated and stuff like that. I don't know if you did.
I've got some moments I can talk through if you want me to go through that. Notice the pop Razor came out to.
Yes.
Oh,
the fans are crazy. They're amazing.
Yeah. There's a good pop for Savage as well.
Yep.
So I think it's kind of instigated by Savage. They all go after Giant Gonzalez, sort of using your logic that you get rid of this absolutely massive guy. So a group of them eliminate Giant Gonzalez. I've got what the fuck is Bastian Booger in my
bro.
notes. Bob Backlund.
What was Bastian Booger supposed to be?
I really don't know.
It's a fair point, actually. What was that one you said there?
But Bob Backlund
yes.
is in the match.
I was laughing when they said that he was in it.
We've got them putting Diesel over by having him eliminate Big Mabel.
Nice.
And on his own, I think he does that one.
Brilliant.
We get some moments of Perfect and Savage going at it, which I was totally there for. I was wanting a bit more of that. Razor eliminates IRS. I don't know why, but I just fully expected it to be Razor and IRS that were the last men standing. So I was a bit like, oh, that's surprising. All Razor's big talk. That's it gone. All IRS's big talk.
Mr. Rotundo, shit the bed.
Mr. Perfect eliminates Diesel. It sounded like they've had a bit of a thing going on for a little while.
He pulled him out the ring at SummerSlam 93, remember?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Bam Bam eliminates Perfect.
Bam Bam should have been in the last two of this, shouldn't he?
Yeah. Someone please get rid of MVP.
Is his face really painted like a baseball?
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that. I thought he looked like a character for Warriors. I'll need to go. Well, I'm sure we'll see him again.
Bam Bam throws Razor through the ropes, but Razor then clotheslines Bam Bam out. Owen eliminates MVP. Then Owen gets eliminated himself almost immediately. So we're left with the Quebecers, Rick Martel, Adam Bomb, Savage, and Razor. Savage eliminates Adam Bomb, but he then from the outside grabs Savage's leg. The Quebecers and Martel eliminate Savage. So we're down to basically the Quebecers, Martel against Razor. Now, I have to question. It works out not too bad for him, but I have to question the logic that Martel's working with here. I get it. He's a heel. They're heels. He's aligning himself with fellow Canadians, whatever, right? But once they all eliminate Razor, only two guys can go to this finale, and he's going to be in there with a tag team.
So
it didn't make that much sense for me for him to team with them. But anyway, so they're all going after Razor. It's a 3-on-1. We get a moment where all three men miss a dropkick attempt, a triple dropkick, which looked quite funny. Razor is briefly having his moments, but then the numbers game keep catching up with him. But then getting towards our finale, Jacques holds Razor. Pierre comes in with a big clothesline. Razor moves. Jacques is knocked over the top rope and eliminated. Pierre's kind of looking on in shock at what he's just done. Razor grabs him from behind and throws him out. So we're left with Razor and Martel. I absolutely love the Razor reaction, like how pumped up he is when he just wants to fight there and then when it's him and Martel that are left. Great.
It's potentially a good new match format. That's what TNA did, isn't it? With their Battle Royal, they had everybody come in and then the last two fought to a pin.
Yeah.
The crowd were going absolutely mental at that point.
Yeah, it was great.
And you did just want to see them go, because at that point we were only planning on watching 4 episodes, and you're thinking, I'm ready. This is an anticlimax. I'm ready for this match. What did you think of Adam Bomb? And have we spoke about him before when we saw Chronic in WCW?
I think we maybe did. Yeah,
is that Brian Adams? No.
Is Adam Bomb Brian Adams?
And
they are similar, aren't they?
Was he fake Undertaker? I think I get him and Crush mixed up.
Oh, no, not an American guitarist. That is the wrong Adam Bomb entirely. Adam Bomb wrestler is what I'm looking for here. Brian Clark, his name was. He was
Chains as well.
He was Adam Bomb, the Night Stalker, and Wrath.
Oh, Brian Clark.
Yeah,
well, there you go.
So I mean he's massive. He has a look.
I think as a kid I thought he looked really cool. It's the
but
glasses.
There's a point. Is it the following show? I don't know that it's this one. I think it's the following show where he does a drop kick on somebody and stuff like that, and he looks quite agile with his size. I don't know that he's I think there's a physical watchable quality there, but I don't know that he's that charismatic.
Aye, I'd agree with that. It reminds me of What were the guys called in WCW? Chuck Palumbo and Sean
O'Hare.
Sean O'Hare. Reminds me of Sean O'Hare.
Yeah.
Yes, our next match. Our boy James E. Cornette, or Jim Cornette, is in the ring. He announces the Heavenly Bodies. What?
But I don't know if this is kind of a screw up at the start, because Vince doesn't seem to realise that Cornette is in the ring doing an intro, because he's kind of speaking over him for a period of time, and then eventually he's like, "Oh, Jim Cornette's here," or something like that. He's been speaking for ages.
I love how Vince knows that he needs to say something about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, so he'll just say Smoky Mountain Wrestling randomly. So he introduces Heavenly Bodies. They are going to take on a team of Mark Taylor and Scott Thomas.
Yeah.
But that is wrong. And I'm telling you that's wrong, because it's Mark Thomas and Scott Taylor.
Oh, is it?
Because Scott Taylor is Scotty Too High.
Oh, wow.
So they got it wrong. I'll email Titan Sports and let them know. I need to amend that on the network. Yeah.
It's obviously right. It's a squash match for the Heavenly Bodies, but I love how involved Cornette gets.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Never a day off for Cornette.
I feel like when I was talking about, Luna interfering in Bam Bam's squash match and it didn't really seem necessary, I feel like had Cornette not got involved in this, you would have been disappointed.
I feel shortchanged.
Yeah.
Brilliant. They start talking about the Rock and Roll Express, and I thought that was weird. Did Bobby Heenan have his own wrestling federation or something?
They're talking about another show that the Rock and Roll Express are going to be on that Heenan hosts. So I assume it's another WWE show
right.
that I think is shown at the weekend, because he mentions the Rock and Roll Express will be on that show.
Right, and then obviously we get them on the next episode, and I guess Cornette's in Smoky Mountain. Cornette's went from the Rock and Roll to the Heavenly Bodies, and they're the heels or something like that. It must have been.
So the Rock and Roll had always, I think, opposed Cornette, and Cornette was always with the Midnight Express.
Oh, right.
And then I think the Midnight Express are gone. They're elsewhere, Japan or something like that. So Cornette has got his new favoured team in Smoky Mountain, and then I assume he has brought the Rock and Rolls into Smoky Mountain to oppose his new team.
Nice, because they've got Smoky Mountain belts on, don't they?
Yeah.
No, that's the Rock and Roll do, aye. Dr. Tom, what's he called? The Doctor of what? Can't remember. And Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. The Gigolo does his dance. What a beautiful man. Is it like a Doctor of Delight or something like that, Tom Prince?
Yeah, it's something like that, yeah.
I was happy to see them again. I was hoping it wasn't just a one and done. And their music's absolutely amazing.
And you want to see Cornette, because he's just good value.
Yes. After that, we get some highlights from Superstars, more antics from Doink. He's barking up the wrong tree trying to wind up Luna and Bam Bam Bigelow. Do you know what I thought about this? This is weird, and without the context actually watching it sounds ridiculous, but that Matt Bourne guy that played Doink was amazing. He's doing stuff when so he's acting like he's going to throw stuff on Bam Bam and Luna, and he's making all these different facial expressions, and it genuinely reminded me of Heath Ledger's Joker.
Nice.
The way he's looking about, and he's suddenly changing expression, and suddenly he's sort of scared, and then he's happy, and he's all this sort of stuff.
I think looking back, I hated the Doink character as a kid. I didn't get it. I didn't want it. I think I wanted the sort of cartoonish element gone.
Right.
But now when I look back, firstly, I think it's a far better character idea than I ever gave it credit for when I was younger. But I would love to have seen him long-term full-on sinister, because there's something about that, that clown character being the heel, but being, there's something evil about it when it's a clown.
Aye. And it's that sort of twisted psychopath that is appealing now. I just think when you see him wrestling dressed in clown stuff, it looks daft.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Fiend type thing. Like, it's a great character, and then you have to step in the ring, though.
Yeah.
But they should. Go on.
There's some poor jobber that tried to help Luna. So Doinks poured the bucket of water over Luna's head. And she's obviously furious about that. But then there's a point where she's just like sitting, I think sitting or kneeling in the middle of the ring. And this poor jobber that's in the ring,
help her up,
he's trying to help, and just leave it, lad. It's just
it's one of these times where you just have to learn.
Yeah.
Don't approach a woman with half a shaved head and like painted veins down her face.
Yeah, if he gets attacked. So Bam Bam's been chasing Doink, is that right? And then Doink goes under the ring.
Yep.
Bam Bam follows, and Bam Bam comes back out, but no Doink. There's no sign of Doink, and then Bam Bam just takes it all out on this poor jobber.
And then Doink sets up like a tripwire and shows himself, and Bam Bam runs and trips over it. Absolute genius. It really is. So that takes us to Doink versus a job guy called Corey Student. There was no future aliases for Corey Student, unfortunately. Doink goes straight round to Heenan. He starts teasing him with the water again, but it's popcorn this time. And Vince is loving this.
Yeah, absolutely. You notice that it obviously comes into play, but Doink comes down with a wee trailer type thing that he's pulling. And I was thinking, I've never seen Doink with such a thing before.
It's weird, eh? It's got like helium balloons hanging off it and stuff like that. You can expect Dink to be riding in that, eh?
Yeah.
Eventually, this is a total squash for Doink. Bam Bam and Luna come down to ringside, and Bam Bam knocks fuck out this wagon.
Yeah.
He's just punching. Like, yeah, there's no gimmick there. That thing's made of steel or metal or whatever, and Bam Bam's just punching away at it.
Yeah.
Doink thinks this is hilarious, which is excellent.
Yeah, I've got a bad feeling. Matt Bourne.
Yeah.
That is him. Matt, yeah. I think there's not many instances of him playing Doink left. I don't think. So I think we've maybe got Survivor Series,
right?
And then I think that's pretty much it.
That's devastating.
Yeah.
Let's just stop watching then. That's devastating news, really is. But that's the end of the episode, isn't it? Bam Bam beats up his wagon and Doink's sitting laughing at him in the ring. Cool. Okay, on to our last episode. I think going back over these is making me realise how much I really enjoyed them.
Nice.
October 11th, 1993, we kick off with the last two men from the Intercontinental Battle Royal, which is Razor Ramon and Rick Martel. They go a fair whack, 10, 12, 15 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good 15 minutes. Did you notice the Vince screw up at the start? And he's bigging up Martel's credentials.
Right.
He describes him as a former WWF champion.
Oh dear.
And I was thinking, do we stop? And then Heenan, about 30 seconds later, corrects Vince. He says he is a former tag team champion, but he's never held singles gold in WWE. And Vince has to acknowledge that he got that wrong.
That's funny. So he's never been IC champion by this point. That's surprising.
Yeah.
He must have held it though. He just feels like he was one of those that.
I have memories of him challenging for it quite a few times, but right enough, he never actually won any of those matches.
Really?
So he was obviously that guy that was in the picture, but I'm not sure he ever got the win.
I feel like. Was him and El Matador a rivalry?
They'd been tag partners and then they split and became rivals.
That was when he became the model, isn't it? He was like just Rick Martel or something.
Yeah, was it Strike Force or something like that?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Love it. Where do these things come from, eh? Useless information. A fairly decent match for the Intercontinental title, but we knew who was going to win, clearly. and the right man won. Our boy, Uzi Machismo.
Yeah, it had to be.
Hits the razor's edge. And it's like, it feels like it's a really good way of crowning how over he is with the fans and the episodes that we've seen. Who did he beat at SummerSlam? He was DiBiase, didn't he?
Yeah, and they made him earn it in this because they actually make Martel look good. He looks strong. He's well in the match. It's not like you come out of it thinking like Razor didn't beat anybody, because they made Martel look good through the match.
Nice. So we've got our new Intercontinental champion. Isn't it funny? Like, so we're between SummerSlam and Survivor Series. We obviously know where we're going, WrestleMania wise. Interesting to see how that sort of pans out, because I'm sure Michael's text you earlier saying Michael's comes back about November time, and it must be in time for Survivor Series, eh?
Because he's the Lawler replacement, kind of. Yeah.
Our next action is the Head Shrinkers. Is it AFA that's with the Head Shrinkers? I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
They are taking on two Jobsworths. I think I caught that one's called Tommy Morrison because Heenan questions if he's the boxer Tommy Morrison.
Yeah.
But I didn't catch the other man. I like the Head Shrinkers. We've talked about them before.
This was great. It's obviously an exhibition. Then they're talking up, like the announcers are doing a pretty good job. I think Heenan says this is the toughest team in WWE, and Savage, who's your babyface, is actually agreeing. He's putting them over as well, being like, says something like, I think that might be the first correct thing you've said tonight, or something like that. Because they're questioning whether the Smoking Guns or the Steiners could deal with them, and I'm like, well, not the Smoking Guns, obviously. I mean, come on, but the Steiners against the Head Shrinkers sounds interesting.
It does, doesn't it? That'd be good. And the bodies wouldn't, because that would be a heel dynamic.
But I loved the Head Shrinkers. The thing I loved towards the end of the match, they're just destroying the guys, for the one guy in particular, for the full time. But then towards the end, they drag the totally out of it, can't stand opponent across to his own corner to get him to tag in the fresh guy.
Aye.
Brilliant. I loved that.
Class. And they're another example of the Bigelow type guys that are big but can move, really agile. And they'll be relatives of the guys we were talking about, the 3-minute warning guys, won't they?
Yeah.
Certainly Rikishi will be anyway. I'm not sure about Samu. Big splash from Fatu, and they get the win. Wonder if Head Shrinkers ever held the titles. Must have done, eh?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Maybe we'll see.
Maybe. Our next match is Owen Hart in resplendent blue. Quite strange to see him in blue, isn't it? I remember him wearing like the sort of checkered trousers. Like different colours.
It is odd. Because I was trying to think, right, where are we with Owen here? Because obviously we're going to be heading towards Survivor Series. And he's going to be with Brother Brett and the rest of the family. And you kind of lose sight of the fact that this is a guy who's a singles wrestler here. Because he's so used to him being, with Anvil or, he was with Al Snow for a bit, wasn't he? And
was he?
I think so, yeah.
He's with Coco Beware for a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he's had plenty of tag partners. I was really, although it was clear what type of match it was going to be, I was really enthusiastic for seeing him, like, just doing a match that should be an exhibition of some of his skills. But then Bobby Heenan threw me off completely because he asked, how many kids Stu and Felicio have?
Oh, he did not. Oh my God.
Vince repeated Felicio. And then he said, Helen.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
I lost concentrate on anything else that was going on.
Why did he say that? Amazing.
I had to rewind it to make sure I'd heard it right.
I didn't remember hearing that at all. That's brilliant. Heenan, absolutely brilliant.
Oh.
So I thought Owen was going to win via drop kick from the top rope, but then he picks the guy up and does like a sort of fisherman suplex type thing. I do remember Owen, because the Rocket Owen Hart, I think he did do a drop kick for the top rope as his finisher, didn't he?
Yeah.
I loved Owen's music; it was amazing.
Yeah, great.
We've got Ludwig Borga in the ring with Vince McMahon, and he says that the USA stands for "You Stink a Lot." So clearly, there's no scriptwriters at this point. And he starts running down Lex Luger, and Lex comes out from the back. It really the way that he came out, and he's got like a white top on. It really reminded me of him walking out on the first episode of Nitro. The way he was walking.
But
what would be
he was sporting some absolutely atrocious red, white, and blue trousers or pajama bottoms.
Yeah,
or
like those sort of weightlifting style, like chef trousers. And Luger stands with his back to the hard cam, so we can't actually see what's going on. We can just see his back, which is classic Luger. Lex says, "I'm ready to help you leave the you're basically saying, if you hate the USA, just leave. I'm more than happy to help you leave right now." And Borga does some pretty good heel work by looking like they're going to get ready for a fight, and then he says, I will fight you, but not right now.
Yeah.
And Luger seems to spawn a USA flag out of nowhere.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out where that had come from.
Maybe
it wasn't there, and then he's waving it.
Did he fashion it from his trousers, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know where the pole came from. But aye, we've got that to look forward to. That could be a horrendous wrestling match, couldn't it?
I wonder if they're maybe on opposing teams at Survivor Series. We'll see.
Like a Team USA versus a bunch of foreigners or something.
Yeah.
God, that's like a Vince McMahon wet dream. Oh God, let's not mention Vince McMahon wet dreams. That's a terrible, terrible idea.
Bound to involve the head shrinkers and the Steiners. That just seems like it's exactly what would fit.
A Yokozuna. Okay. Adam Bomb with his new manager Harvey Whippleman. I like how they said that he's done. Johnny Polo and Harvey Whippleman have done a trade. I love the idea of that.
Yeah.
I'll trade you Adam Bomb for.
It feels like it'd be the managers getting together in some smoke-filled room and just thrashing out some sort of deal.
That's amazing, eh? Love that. Yeah. So Adam Bomb is a squash match versus a man versus Ross Greenberg. He's not up there on the jobbers list of who we've seen so far, unfortunately, and
this must be where he does his drop kick, Adam Bomb, and then I think he propels himself over the rope to do a shoulder block type move as well.
Classic 90s, early 90s move, that one. What was his finishing move? Powerbomb.
Yes.
And big win for of course it was a powerbomb. His name's Adam Bomb.
Yeah.
Next match, Rock and Roll Express versus Barry Hardy and Dwayne Gill.
It was, wasn't it? It was Gilbert.
That's
Gilbert,
who that
was.
Yeah. Wow. I always thought that they said that Gilbert was like the school teacher, and then they just like sort of plucked him from nowhere to be Gilbert.
Yeah.
But that must be either nonsense or like he was always a trained wrestler sort of thing.
Maybe, and I suppose he could be doing it if he was living, say, in New York or Connecticut. This one is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He could do his school teaching through the day and then be there for Raw at night.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah.
He looked pretty cool, and he looked a bit like Owen Hart almost. Did old Dwayne Gill. The Rock and Roll Express. How do they all? It's a bit like Arn Anderson. Like they just always look old.
Yeah. Like I've never seen them in what would have been, I think, termed as being their prime, but they've never looked young.
Even I think when we've seen them before, 89 American Bash, they still look like this.
Yeah.
Ricky Morton and
Robert Gibson.
And Morton, the one with the spiky blonde mullet thing.
Yeah, I think he was considered a great worker, wasn't he? He was like great seller, and I think he had singles matches with Flair and stuff like that once or twice.
We were really impressed watching them back around the 90s. I seem to remember. We loved the way that they were working. Or was that at midnight?
I remember more seeing the midnight.
Stan Lane.
Yeah. and I think both teams were considered great, and I think they had their big rivalry for a long time. Kind of think it'd probably be quite interesting to see.
It feels like a period of wrestling that I've missed out on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wasn't, sadly, not that impressed, and their finishing move was a double drop kick.
Yeah, I mean, at least they were doing some tag combo stuff, but yeah, it was I think there was a double clothesline, then a double drop kick to finish it, and it was a bit like, okay.
You obviously yourself, like, you're more of a Young Bucks fan these days, so you're like sort of used to seeing all sorts of crazy stuff.
I always do more of the comparison with the Rockers, because I think the Rockers modelled themselves off the Rock and Roll Express. Yep. And like, I remember the Rockers looking incredible, like in their double team moves and their selling and all that, and I kind of look and think, were they better than these guys?
As soon as you've said that, I can picture the Rockers doing a double drop kick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
almost immediately. That's funny. I don't think I've ever put that one-on-one together and got two as far as the Rockers and the Rock and Roll.
Yeah, because I'm sure they were. There was some sort of controversy about the name, and I'm going with being the Rockers, and maybe a deliberate intent to mislead an audience as to who it was going to be.
Yeah, you could see that.
Yeah, but I think they definitely. I think Michaels has said they modelled themselves on those guys.
Right. Okay, the last thing that we get from this episode is the sort of them setting the scene for we're going to get a Macho Man and Crush. Did they get Crush on the phone again? No.
Yeah. No, we didn't. I think we just got Heenan confirming that Crush is going to be there, and that's maybe between matches or during that last match. And Savage is very adamant that they're just going to talk it out. But there is that element as Savage is talking of it's almost like the Big Brother type thing, where he's like, he's not dumb enough to make this a physical thing or something like that. It's like, we'll just talk it out and it'll all be fine because he knows he can't take me type thing.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like it. So Savage just kind of went from, hey brother, to, oh, this is a misunderstanding, to, like you say, look, this isn't going to happen. Yeah. It'll all get sorted out when we talk. Mm-hmm. It's played really well, surprisingly well. Eh?
Yeah, I like it. And unfortunately, I can just remember a match that isn't very good. Mania 10.
Aye, but please don't. Please, Crush, don't turn up with face paint on, because he wears weird face paint at WrestleMania 10, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
because he's and he has went from, like, when they first talked to him, he's like Hawaiian Crush. And over these weeks, he's sort of turned a bit more darker and darker, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Subtle storytelling. Who'd have thought it in October 1993?
They'll never catch on.
Nah. So that's pretty much it, isn't it? 5 episodes.
Yeah.
I think we've surprised ourselves at how much we've enjoyed them.
It was good fun. I know that because I'd watched episode 1 and 2 before you, and I remember you messaging me being like, I think we've made a mistake or something like that, and I was thinking, I kind of knew you would enjoy the second one more. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm happy to, I can look with some confidence towards the next 5. Let's see how they go, and then we'll be at Survivor Series.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're on the road to Rumble after that, and I can't imagine it's that many episodes between Survivor Series and the Rumble either.
No.
So, aye, we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to seeing that. This is what's happened. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when Crush and Macho Man end up in the ring together.
Nice.
I genuinely thought he was going to come out at that Battle Royal and eliminate Savage.
Right.
That is what would happen now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's good that there's that willingness to just let it build.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So in the last 2 weeks, I was going to ask us at the start, and I forgot. In the last 2 weeks, have you watched any other wrestling?
I watched some of Bash at Berlin. Is that what it's called? Bash at Berlin. Yeah. So I watched 3 matches from that. I initially watched the strap match, the CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, which I thought was fine. I'm kind of over the bracelet thing, you know.
Yeah.
And then I watched the Gunther Orton title match, which I was partly just really curious to see what the crowd would be like for that.
And what were they like? Were they full Gunther or?
I wouldn't say full, but yeah, they were definitely in support of him. But I think it's one of them where there's just a lot of respect for an Orton, so they're not going to full on boo an Orton. But it was good. It was entertaining. I quite liked the story they told in the match. I thought it was good.
Did you feel there was a chance of Randy being? He's obviously just. Who did he beat for the title? Damien Priest.
Yeah, I couldn't see it. It's one of those where maybe if it had been in America or just elsewhere, maybe I would have thought there's a chance. Because I think what the Priest thing maybe did, which I don't think is a negative, is told us all that not every title reign is going to be a long title reign. Yeah. Yes, they have their place, but the things can just change, and I think that was good, and that adds a little bit of doubt, hopefully, going into the majority of title matches. But I also watched the Cody and Owens match, and I didn't feel like there was any jeopardy there whatsoever, like even less chance of that going to Owens than there was with Gunther losing in his home country. But yeah,
what was the story behind Cody and KO? Was it just simply that he was number one contender sort of thing?
No, I think they played it fairly interestingly. I only really got this from the sort of summary clip before it, which was that Cody was looking for an opponent, and he basically said that he felt Owens was worthy of a shot, and Owens didn't seem to want to do it. He'd been very much on Cody's side through getting rid of
bloodline stuff and
Reigns and all that. But they then tweaked it a little bit to where I think they teamed up, and then Cody got his ass kicked in a situation, and Owens kind of, I think what he said to him was, "You asked for this," or something like that type thing. And it all came across as fine, and there was no like heel shenanigans or anything like that. But I think it was maybe a lot of the story was around. Apparently, Owens hasn't had a singles title for 7 years, which seems a bit crazy actually. But I think it was partly trying to give him what was seen as his fire back, to really want it again, because much as he didn't want the match, by the end when he didn't get it, he seemed devastated. Right. So I think they were trying to do that.
He's a bit of a funny character, isn't he? It's quite similar to Kane. I think back, like, you seem to be able to pop him in anywhere, and but he's no real. Like, you wouldn't see him as like sort of face of the company type guy or anything like that.
Yeah, I think like maybe just like a steady hand that you can put in with anyone. I think is how they see him. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do with Owens now, having had him go through that. And I think it was also perceived during the match that like there was, I think Cody's selling like a long-term knee injury, whether it's based on anything real, I'm not sure. But they had Owens seeming reluctant to take advantage of it at times, and then kind of being regretful after the event that he didn't.
Right. They might turn him heel or something, and like possibly a bit of edge, a bit of regret.
I'm not sure what else is kind of. I think they were talking Solo Sikoa and why is his name escaped me? We were just talking about him.
Cody.
Yeah. Wow, of all the names in the company to forget just now. I think they were talking about going in that direction, but surely that's going to be hijacked at some point by Reigns and the old bloodline and new bloodline type situation. So I don't know. I think the indication was there will be a title shot for Solo Sikoa, but is anyone really interested in that?
I think they could probably do with moving Cody on to sort of like something else, couldn't they? It's in danger of it just being.
It feels like they're missing a genuine threat for him right now, and he's just kind of keeping ticking along rather than doing anything too significant.
It'd be interesting to see if they do take the title off either of those guys. Obviously, Gunther had that big, long Intercontinental title reign, so you feel like they've done a really good job of building him to the point where he is like this legitimate world heavyweight champion. But you didn't see them taking the title off Cody Rhodes either, do you?
Nah, I would expect him to at least go to Mania still with it. But I did wonder if there is anything legitimate in the knee injury story. You know, if there's anything needs done there, then maybe they might surprise us and he'll lose it to somebody. But yeah, I much preferred, and I was much more interested in the Gunther story, and the way it was told in the match was really it was interesting. Given there shouldn't really have been any jeopardy, it was interesting the way they did it.
Nice. The only one I watched was Punk and McIntyre, and said to you already, I didn't love the strap match format, the whole red and green lights and needing to touch the turnbuckle and all that. I really enjoyed Punk's dog collar match with MJF that we've talked about before, and they've built this The rivalry kind of went from like absolutely despising each other to being over this bracelet, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
it's got I feel like it's got away from them a little bit, and then they added Seth Rollins in at SummerSlam, which also felt a bit odd.
Yeah,
it's weird that they've not had a one-on-one match, and I feel like they're going to end up in a Hell in a Cell or something like that. I thought Punk looked really good based on having seen him towards the back end of that AEW run where he just looked quite frail. I think he looked probably about the best sort of physical condition I could have seen him in for a long
if
time.
He's come out with, obviously he had to take time off because he needed surgery, but I suppose that lets an awful lot of other things heal as well. It just gives it a bit of time. But if he's come out of this without an injury, that feels like progress, because it did seem for a while like he was getting injured almost every major match he had.
I think based on the work he's putting in, McIntyre probably deserves to hold one of those titles.
Yeah.
Sticking him across against Cody might have been interesting.
Well, you could see a significant threat there. You know, you there's not that many opponents that they could give Cody just now that I would think he could beat him for the title, but I think McIntyre would be a believable one.
Aye. His mic work and all that's brilliant now.
Oh yeah.
I think as a face he's just a bit
there
boring,
seems
a bit
to
bland.
be a charisma there that didn't feel like it was there before. But I wonder as well, because you see and hear about some of the social media stuff, is he just being him now, turned up to 11? And if he is, great. That's what you want.
Definitely, I would say freedom feels like a word that best describes how he's behaving. It's cool. I watched All Out, as you know, at Wembley, which I loved. Surprised myself how much I loved it. Danielson versus Swerve Strickland was really good storytelling, very emotional. They had Danielson's wife and the kids in the front row, and he was all bloodied, and all that stuff was great. Will Ospreay versus MJF was all right.
Okay.
I don't really like what they've done with MJF. I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like it's all went a bit samey, and he's even a lot of his promos have went from like, it's that thing we spoke about before when we were talking about Punk. It's that Eminem shock value, just saying like his promos now are like, I'm going to sleep with your wife, or I'm going to, I don't know. It's
a shame because he had that injury break, and you're thinking, if you bring him back right, if you hit this right, people should be so desperate to see him. You know, he was one of the major stars of the company, and then was off screen for a few months.
Yeah.
And it just feels like they haven't capitalised on it at all.
Nah, it's one of the things as well where, like, you know, when somebody breaks in relatively young, and they did make a big thing of him only being 24 or something like that, they need to go away for a bit sometimes.
Yeah.
And I loved, I texted you about Nigel McGuinness being in the Battle Royal type thing that they were doing. That's brilliant. And the crowd pop for him was unbelievable.
Nice.
Really surprised me how much they popped for him. That was cool. And the Ricochet debuting in that. And then Christian limped out and won the guaranteed title shot, so that was quite
What a lad.
fun. But it didn't make me want to watch AEW every week or anything like that. But
okay. But you enjoyed the
I
show.
would say it was a good pay-per-view to watch.
Nice.
It's good to have these options, isn't it? Like the WWF, the WWE, sorry, do these sort of 5-match. That they seem to be in a rhythm of doing these sort of 5-match pay-per-views, whereas AEW's like balls to the wall. Let's throw everybody in their granny on the card, and I think it's a good way to do things. They're doing things totally differently. It's good to have options.
You want two strong companies putting out content, and then one might grab you for a while, and the other might grab you for a while. I've not got any issues, I don't think, with the way WWE are doing things, but it does feel like at times, now maybe come sort of Rumble to Mania season, that they could do with switching things up a little bit. But again, you maybe need to have these. It's probably unfair to call it a lull, but sort of, everything a bit calmer, not so much going on, and then you can, when you get to your peak time, you can maybe turn it up.
Do you think the Rock will be back at some point?
I would think so. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if we're talking about Cody Rhodes. They wouldn't do Rock Cody Rhodes, would they?
It feels like it should be Rock Reigns if they're, in like, the two factions,
chief versus boss sort of thing.
But I don't know. I know that it seemed to be on the table that they wanted to at some point do Rock and Cody Rhodes.
He did all that stuff with whipping him with a belt and all that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Interesting. It's amazing to think. Where are we? August.
September.
It comes around pretty fast, doesn't it? When you talk about Rumble, and they'll be doing War Games, I guess.
I would guess so. Yeah.
Will that be that's November, isn't it? Oh, it's this Bad Blood thing. Pay-per-view. I know that Triple H had said something about like getting away from these pay-per-views that are like TLC, and you need to have a TLC match. And I don't think I agree with them doing War Games every Survivor Series.
No, I think we've talked before about how these kind of matches should occur naturally. Like, a rivalry gets to a certain point, and then you have your end match in a program, and you're in a cell or something like that, rather than, that's just where we are in the calendar, so that'll be that kind of match. I think you can look at it differently for things like, I can see the value in having a Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't know that you need as many of them, as there are per pay-per-view, but that one makes sense because you're then putting basically a clock on somebody having that briefcase and cashing in. But the ones where it's like TLC or Hell in a Cell, I would agree. I think you want and need that to happen naturally in a storyline, not just because of where you are in the year.
Yeah, because you end up like, what did you have last year? Bloodline, and then it's kind of like miscellaneous team of faces sort of thing. I'll come to help your rescue a couple of weeks before the next pay-per-view sort of thing. That'll be interesting to see. I'll be interested to see if Rock does come back. I did like his...
I was fairly impressed. Like, I think I had a bit of fear about him. Like, remember when he was going to be in the match night one of Mania, and I thought, it's going to be a disaster.
He's going to pull every muscle.
But he did fine, and I think, it being a tag match helped him and all that. But no, he did fine, and he went away quickly as well, which I thought was a good thing. Like, post-Mania, basically gone, and it gives time, and it gives a bit of breathing space, and then when he does reappear, I think there's two totally viable storylines for him to get involved in.
Have you seen Undertaker was talking about still wanting to have a final match?
Was he? I thought he'd said he was happy with the way he'd left things.
I think he said something like, there's always that thought that it could have been better.
But that
was his last match. His last match wasn't against Goldberg, was it?
No, his last match was his last match officially the AJ Styles cinematic.
Oh, it was WrestleMania 36. I think it was. Then they did that really weird Survivor Series send-off type thing. And did you see Dory Funk had like a death match? Is it 80 something?
Yeah. Is it in tribute to Terry?
Aye.
I think. Yeah. I mean, I get it. You want to do a tribute for your brother, but no, don't do that.
Like, run a show.
Yeah.
And you would get people queuing up to want to pay tribute to Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Mental. Fair play. Cool. Right, well, normally at this point in time we talk about what we're going to watch next or what's in the next pay-per-view, but we'll just have to wait and see, which is kind of a beautiful thing. 5 episodes of Raw and lots of unbelievables from Vinnie Mac.
Nice. Well, sometimes.
Excellent. Cool. Right. Keep on keeping on, and we shall speak again in 2 weeks.
Cool.
Take it easy, buddy.